Wagwan, welcome back to my channel. So in this video, I'm going to make bammy from scratch. Then I'm going to pair it with fried fish. Typical Friday food in my house. So I am using sweet cassava that I wash. And then I am peeling the cassava. And then I'm going to wash again. And then I'm going to cut each cassava into small pieces because I'm going to put them into a food processor, right? I'm gonna blend them in a food processor. Traditionally, people use the homemade grater, but nowadays, if you want, you can use the box grater, but me not use none of them. You understand? Me not use no grater. I am using the food processor. If you don't have a food processor, you can always use the grater. You understand? I'm putting some of the cassava pieces into a food processor, and then I'm gonna blend until smooth. I'm doing it into steps because I do not want to add all the pieces at once and then choke the food processor. Now, this is my recipe on my channel, so I don't want YouTube mama to come on my channel, watch what I'm doing, and then go back on her channel and have her little shade them what she adding in between. I will make a video and drag you. Mind your business. You understand? You're too inquisitive. All right, listen. All right, so I am scraping the blended cassava into a container, or in the bammy world they call it mass. So this is the second batch and the final batch because it's only 2 pounds of cassava. So I am just scraping it into the same container. So now I am putting a handful of the cassava mass, mass, right, into a clean cheesecloth. You can use a clean dish towel as well, right? So now I'm gonna squeeze the starch from the cassava mass. Gonna squeeze it as tightly as possible. You want to squeeze out the starch completely. You understand? Yes, man. And this starch is the main ingredient nowadays in the Jamaican red stripe beer. Yeah, man. So we're gonna squeeze out the starch because you don't want the starch. You only want the mass, right? So just squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. You understand? Yeah, man, just wring and squeeze as tightly as possible. After squeezing out the starch as much as possible, then I'm going to put the mass into a container, and then I'm going to rub it between the palm of my hands to fluff them out a bit, or whatever you want to call it. Just look at the video. Now, you don't have to do this as yet. You can squeeze out the entire thing, the starch from the entire thing, and then you do this. But I find this much easier for me to fluff them out in smaller amount. That's why I'm doing it after squeezing out the starch each time. You understand? So after finish rubbing the mass between my palms, then I'm gonna squeeze some more and continue these steps until it is finished. Okay, so when my grandmother is making bammy, she put the grated mass into a bammy presser. That's a machine, right? So she doesn't put it into a cloth and wring it or anything like that. But me can't bother with the machine because it's just three little bammies. Yeah, so after squeezing out the starch and then fluffing using the palm of my hands, then now this is what it looks like. So what I'm gonna do is to allow it to dry so that it can be easily sieved are sifted. You know, when it is wet, it is more difficult to pass through a sieve or a strainer, so I'm gonna allow it to dry. So I'm gonna leave it out on the countertop and allow it to dry for probably 5 hours or so because it is quite early in the morning right now. So after 5 hours, it is still not dry to my satisfaction. And I was saying to myself, I hope this thing don't give me any problem when I'm sieving it or straining it, whatever you want to call it. I call a strain or sieve same way. Anyway, what you can do is to prepare the cassava the day before making the bammy so that it can dry properly so that when you are sieving it or sieving it or whatever the word is, you know, it won't give you any problem. It will sieve easily. So now I am sieving it in small amount. Yeah, man, because it's still not dry, you know. Still needs to dry some more. After sifting, this is what it looks like. Now it's ready to make bammy, but first I added salt to it. Never remember to record that part. Just add a little bit of salt and then taste it to see if it needs more salt. And then you just use your hands to stir the salt into the bammy flour because it is bammy flour now. You understand? Yeah, man. So I am gonna mix 3 bammies with this amount of bammy flour. I use 2 pounds of sweet cassava. Traditionally, the bammy is made on an iron griddle, but I'm doing it on my stove top on low heat. I put a thick bottom frying pan. The frying pan is hot and the heat is low, so I put a bammy hoop in the center of the frying pan. It is called a hoop, bammy hoop, Hoop, hoop. So I am using a quarter cup to a quarter cup to put the bammy flour inside of the hoop to to make the bammy. So the amount of bammy flour you use determine the thickness of the bammy. I don't like my bammy thick, and that's why I like to make my bammies because the ones in the supermarket is too thick for my taste. You know, I'm talking about myself. So, and my bammy taste is much better as well, to tell you the honest truth. Yes, so what I'm doing is using the back of a spoon to pad, just to pad the bammy flour into the hoop, you know, to shape out the bammy. Basically, I'm shaping out the bammy right now, and meanwhile it is baking, by the way, and the heat should be on low, the lowest setting. It should be just a little bit of fire. So I am gonna bake each side for about, I would say, 9 minutes, and very low heat, low heat. Yeah, man. And I like my bammy with a little bit of crust, but if you don't like the crust on it, and it, you know, it has the crust on it, I'm gonna show you what to do to get rid of the crust. But I personally like the crust on my bammy, and I do not like my bammy too thick, as I mentioned before. So if you like your bammy thick and you will be following this recipe, you'll have to put more bammy flour and then use the back of the spoon to pad it inside of the hoop. So after 9 minutes, and remember that it is on really, really low heat, I am flipping the bammy to the other side, right? And that is what I'm talking about. I like when my bammy has that crust on it, but if you don't like your bammy with that crust, you can just scrape it off. That's what most people do. So when you see the bammy selling in the supermarket extremely white, because they scrape off the crust and just keep scraping until the entire surface of the bammy is white to your satisfaction. But as I mentioned before, personally, I like the crust on my bammy. I'm just scraping it to show you that it can actually scrape off to your satisfaction. The bammy is finished baking, so I remove it from the skillet or the frying pan. So this is my bammies, my three bammies. It takes 18 minutes for one, 9 minutes for one side, 9 minutes for the other side. If you don't want the crust, you can probably do one for like 7 or 8 minutes on each side. You understand? Yeah, man. On low heat though. My freshly baked bammies, I am gonna soak them in a little bit of coconut milk. You can use milk or you can use water. So I'm gonna soak each side for about 2 minutes or probably a minute. Yeah, man, because they are freshly baked. And then I am gonna fry them about 4 minutes on each side. Yeah, man. So this is it. This is my bami the way how I like it. Thanks for watching.